time. So we're going to get started. Thank you, all of you, for joining us on Super Saturday Recovery Summit. We are offering this the third week of the month. So August, I think 15th is the next one. Hope you'll join then. We will post the next lineup, hopefully yet this week on In the Room's homepage. This is well, first of all, I keep getting reminded I need to introduce myself. I'm Tammy Verhelst. I work with Seeking Integrity Los Angeles. Dr. Rob Weiss, who I just mentioned, was trained by Dr. Carol Clark, who you're going to hear in just a moment. That's where he got his PhD in sexology. But Dr. Rob and In the Rooms, we decided to come together and collaborate on this series. And this is an opportunity to bring presenters that typically are presenting to the professional community and have them here share information and let you ask questions directly of them. So speaking of that, this will be recorded. So I ask that you do not post in the people requesting to share, but rather that you IM me and I will ask them. Carol's going to present on the topic of Addict America. She wrote the book. She wrote the book on this one, and she's going to present on that for about 40 minutes and then answer questions. So without further, well, I started saying I've known Carol for years. Our paths kept crossing at different conferences and things. But part of her training, for those of you, if you're ever looking for help with sexual health as well as addiction things, her therapist, she trains therapists and they understand addiction, but also overall sexual health. So visit her site and look for resources. So without further ado, Carol.
Hi, thank you, Tammy, for having me. This is wonderful. So hello, all of you out there in TV land. Welcome. I'm Dr. Carol Clark. And I wrote the book, Addict America, The Lost Connection, as well as a newer book called My Pocket Therapist, 12 Tools for Living in Connection. Today, I'm going to just give a brief overview about the concepts that are in the book. And I hope you'll be able to follow along with the presentation online. But I
should have mentioned that. It's in the Addict America, The Lost Connection, in the blue bar there. You can download those and follow along. So
that's the presentation. That's not the whole book. You can get the book on Amazon. So both books. And yeah, so I have schools because I've been a therapist, but then I started training sex therapists, addictions therapists, a few other things. And when you look at these slides, you'll see I have a bug named after me, and it's adorable, my bug. So I'd like to start off with John Donne's passage from his poetry. No man is an island entire of itself. Every man is a piece of the continent, a part of the main. If a clod be washed away by the sea, Europe is the less, as well as if a promontory were, as well as any manner of thy friends or of thine own were. Any man's death diminishes me because I am involved in mankind. Therefore, never send to know for whom the bell tolls. It tolls for thee. That passage really exemplifies this idea of connection. We are all connected, and if one person dies, it affects all of us. If something happens to any of us, it affects everyone. So we have this interconnection. And one of the things that addiction does is it separates us, it disconnects us, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So this workshop will give everyone a new conceptual framework in which to approach addiction. The motivation for all human behavior is to belong, connection. And so at the heart of all problems is disconnection from ourselves, from each other, and from the universe, whatever your higher power is, however you conceptualize the universe. It's all about addiction forms a disconnection from everything. So we're going to look at the concept of addiction as a global condition relating to overall stimulation, as opposed to being specific to a particular drug or activity. So addiction isn't about being addicted to alcohol, to sex, to drugs, to gambling. It's about being an addict and having various drugs of choice. So we're going to apply the addiction conceptualization to anyone experiencing problems with relationships and intimacy, and apply the addiction conceptualization to individuals with anger issues, compulsive working, shopping, the use of technology, and other behaviors. Now, in my life, I've been on my own journey. I'm the daughter of an alcoholic, and I can recognize when my behavior becomes addictive, when my mind moves into an addictive state versus a recovering state. And I've done that. I've come to that realization through the years by just through my own growth and development and connecting to the universe and getting messages from the universe, from my higher power. And so one time when you go to the slides, I didn't realize you wouldn't be able to see the slides as we're doing this. But when you go to the slides, you're going to see a picture of a bridge. And that was from when I was up in the Catskills, looking out on this bridge where I had spread my father's ashes after he died. And I got this message about looking forward, not back. So when we look back, all we can do is have regrets, have what ifs, have shoulds. And so the message I got was look forward, look at where we're going, look at where we want to be, and do not fear. And so then I climbed up on one of the bars over the bridge, and just to kind of play out the experiential part of that, because I was very fearful of heights. And then I got the message that something wonderful is coming. And then this is it. So this idea, we're looking forward, do not fear, something wonderful is coming. And then being aware of, you know what, this is it. Each day, being in the moment, being present. This is it. There's nothing more coming. This is it. And then when we're in that place of connection to the universe, that this is it, we're not looking forward to something else, to getting somewhere, to getting something like people do in addiction. It's right here, right now, this is it. And in that awareness, we are in connection. Then we're in complete connection, everything is in focus, and everything's okay. So we're a nation of addicts. That's why I named the book Addict America. We're a nation of addicts. Americans exemplify the nature of addiction, that we're always wanting more and more and more, wanting to achieve, wanting to go, go, go. We have obsessive, compulsive, out of control behavior done in spite of negative consequences, self or others. This is the definition of addiction. So it doesn't matter about drug of choice or behavior of choice. Obsessive, compulsive, out of control behavior done in spite of negative consequences, self or others. And when we look around at Americans in general and how we all behave, even watching the news, we watch the news obsessively, compulsively, and that is part of the addictive process. So we're a nation of addicts right from the get-go. So we were looking at stimulation, what we're really addicted to. If we're addicted to anything, it's to stimulation. Anything that provides stimulation feeds into that addict brain. And then when our addict brain pairs this particular behavior or drug-taking activity with stimulation, then that becomes our drug of choice. That becomes our go-to. But it can be sex, it can be gambling, computer games, texting, stress, anger. Now think about anger. Anger is very stimulating. So when we have an anger problem, if you think, oh, I have an anger issue, I get really angry, I can't control my anger. Look at what we're doing, obsessive, compulsive, out of control behavior, and certainly negative consequences. So anger and stress. You say, well, those things don't make me feel good. You know, addictive drugs make me feel good. Well, yeah, they did in the beginning. But guess what? The limbic system is our survival brain. That's where our emotions are. That's where the pleasure centers of the brain are. It feeds us the dopamine. And that's where memory is. So we remember the things that make us feel good. But that part of the brain, knows that when dopamine is released, it generally feels good. But dopamine can be released with a lot of other things like anger and stress. And the limbic system doesn't differentiate pleasure. The prefrontal cortex, what I call the enlightened brain, that part of the brain assigns a meaning to something. So when the limbic system or caveman brain is getting excited, it's getting some kind of stimulation, then it's our prefrontal cortex that says, this is pleasurable, I like this. So it might say, well, I don't like this. But if we're giving a lot of stimulation, more than what the caveman brain is accustomed to after 5 million years, then it's going to reset the bar. That's what we call tolerance. We're going to need more and more to get the same effect, okay? And it doesn't matter where that stimulation is coming from. So for all of you who are maybe struggling with addiction, recovery, or you're just looking at ways to strengthen your recovery, or maybe you don't think you're an addict, and now maybe after this talk you'll rethink that. You're thinking, anger, stress, but I have good reasons to be angry or stressed. And what's that have to do with addiction? Well, we're going to talk more about that. But right now, it does have a lot to do with addiction, because you reset the bar, you need more stimulation, and then you think you're living in recovery, maybe from your drugs, alcohol, sex addiction. But if you're still getting angry all the time and you're still getting stressed, then I would say you need to strengthen your recovery. So work, people become workaholics, sugar and carbs. Then you have an actual substance, which is the sugar or the carbs, combined with behavioral addiction, reaching for whatever food is going to feed that addict brain. So there's all kinds of things. And sometimes, you know, people will laugh and they'll say, oh, well, listen to you. You're going to say that anything could be addictive. Walking my dog could be addictive. Well, you know what? Yeah. It could be, if it becomes obsessive, compulsive, out of control behavior done in spite of negative consequences, self or others. And this is where the idea of sex addiction is so interesting, because for all those people that say, oh, there's no such thing as sex addiction, or it's this, that, or the other, it's not about the sex, it's about the addiction, it's about the energy you bring into it and the intention you bring into it. So certain behaviors can be addictive or they can be recovering. And when we're looking at moving from a sex addiction place to healthy sex place, it's about the energy you're bringing into your sexual activity, sexual behavior. I hope you all keep track of questions, because I'm so acutely aware of the time, the limited time we have, that I'm rushing. And so just write down.
Take your time, but anybody who does have questions, feel free to IM them to me. I'll save them, and then when Carol's done, and I'll keep you on point with time, so don't worry.
Okay. Well, I've always got an eye on the time. So the understanding your brain, it's real important to understand your brain, that limbic system, the caveman brain. Again, it's all about survival. That part of the brain has the memories, it has the emotions, it has the pleasure centers. All of those things contribute to our survival. It's 5 million years old, and it has been chugging along fine for all those years, and it really doesn't want to change, which is why when you start doing something that intensifies stimulation to that part of the brain, it's going to reset the bar, so you need more, because the brain, that part of the brain, is trying to maintain the status quo. Now, the other important thing about that is when it comes to survival, the limbic system will shut down the thinking brain, the prefrontal cortex, the enlightened brain, and make it impossible for you to think. Because if you're being attacked by a saber-toothed tiger, you don't have time to think. If you stop to think, you're going to be dead. So it has to respond immediately. And it has to shut down the brain's ability to think and just respond. Okay? So whenever you're saying to yourself, oh, how could I be so stupid? It's not about being stupid. It's about your ability to think and reason was literally shut down. Okay, so think about that for a minute. The enlightened brain, the prefrontal cortex, that's where we create meaning for events, decision-making, and we have an awareness of self, others, and our higher power. That's where I say, I am me, you are you, and I'm aware that I'm not the greatest power in the universe. There is a higher power, and I'm connected to everything. But when all of that gets shut down, I'm not thinking about me, you, the universe, anything. I'm just in craving mode and drug-seeking mode. Okay? So connection to others is connection to the universe. Intimacy is not just about sex. Intimacy is the experiencing of connection. It's sharing. It's coming together and being fully connected and intimate. Addiction is a barrier to intimacy. So how does this come about? Well, when we're children, and the intimacy and connection and recovery link that's at the top of your screen has a really wonderful graphic that I created that show where that disruption in the ability to be intimate begins in the brain. And it starts in childhood when we take in messages about not being good enough, about being worthless, being afraid that if I let someone see me, if I get too close to someone, they're going to see how worthless I am. And they're going to reject me. They're not going to love me. They're going to see I'm unlovable. And so that fear is an emotion, fear's back in the caveman brain. That fear keeps us, it's protecting us, we think. So we're setting up these barriers to getting too close. But we have the enlightened brain that wants to be close, that recognizes we are all connected. That's our default, is to be connected. So we have these events from childhood that say it's not safe to be too close to someone. But then we have this part of our brain that says, no, I want to be connected. I want to be close. So what do we do with that? What we're doing is we create what I call pseudo-intimacy. We find situations, ways to control situations. So we try to control the level of intimacy in our relationships. Here's what comes up for me a lot as a sex therapist. I'll have a couple come in to me and to see me, and they'll say, we're having trouble with our sex lives. We want to get back to the way we used to be. Well, guess what? When they first met each other, they were all hot and bothered and turned on by each other. And their sex life was great. But then as they started falling in love, so they were close sexually, but they were distanced emotionally. But then as they start getting closer emotionally, something has to give. They have to control how close they get. And so they pull back sexually. And now they want me to fix this. But it's not just, oh, let me give you some little quickie exercises or fun things you can do to be closer sexually. No, we need to deal with the intimacy fears. Okay, so there's another article at the top of your screen called Intimacy by the Numbers. And that's a great one for describing this process in a very simple way of why relationships don't work out. Okay, and why when one person is in recovery and it is able to connect, starts healing the traumas and starts behaving in ways that are more connected and present and grounded. If their partner is not on that journey with them and not doing their own work, then you're going to have one person trying to get close to the other and the other one's pulling away. Okay, so that is really laid out in Intimacy by the Numbers. And so you can read that and feel free to reproduce either of those things and pass them out, hand them out to everybody you know. They have links to my books on them, so, advertising. And it's helpful. I just want everybody to get this information too. So we have this desire for connection and a fear of connection. I hope you're all with me on that. And oftentimes we use sex as a shortcut to intimacy. If I can be sexual with someone, I can feel connected. But it's a dead end, isn't it? So when intimacy is developed over time and is the result of true connection, then sex can be an expression of that intimacy. And it can be one of many And then it doesn't matter what you're doing or how you're doing it or what kinds of problems you might have with having sex with another person. Those all melt away because really it's about expressing intimacy. So some of the ways that we, this pseudo-intimacy comes into play is when you have someone who's always getting involved with someone who's geographically distant. You know, I had a friend one time who was saying, why do I always meet men who live out of town? Gee, how convenient for keeping them at a distance. Somebody who's always getting involved with married people or is married themselves. That's a built-in barrier to intimacy. We can't really connect if we have this ongoing relationship with another person. Addiction. Addiction, you know, always comes first. If you're an addict, an active addict, yeah, that always comes first. And so it's always going to be getting between you and another person. Being online for different behaviors. So when, you know, you have anonymous partners or you have people that you're online, you're not fully connecting with them. And we see this, you know, people who do online dating and they're having, building up this wonderful relationship, even if they get to the point of talking on the phone, but they're chatting and sending emails and all this stuff. But then when they meet face to face, it all falls apart because now there's no more barriers. So they don't have that protection. So generally, people who are unavailable, when you're having continual relationships with people who are unavailable for whatever reasons, and we pick up on that vibrationally. That's the intimacy by the numbers. We unconsciously will be attracted to people who have an equal fear of intimacy. Equal fear of intimacy. So wherever I am, as far as how close I can get to another person, I'm going to attract someone who has that equal fear of intimacy. And if you're an addict and you're getting in a relationship with another person, and that other person could say, well, I didn't know he was an addict or she was an addict when I met them. Vibrationally, you did. Vibrationally, you knew there was something there. Which is not to say anybody, we're never saying anyone is responsible for anyone else's behavior. No, you're both bringing this into your relationship. So the slides here have my picture of the brain that starts out with just illustrates this whole addictive process. So it starts out with in the middle, again, we have childhood where you get these messages, and it could be a message that's as seemingly benign as, why can't you get an A on your report card? You need to do better. This B isn't good enough. And the parent thinks they're being motivational, and the kid takes in, I'm not good enough. And I worked really hard to get that B, so I'm never going to be good enough. And that causes the pain of disconnection. Now I'm starting to pull back. That causes pain. And then what happens is we get into the negative belief, I'm not good enough, I'm worthless, I'm not lovable. Now I'm really feeling the pain. And then what happens, I find a drug or a behavior. I turn to the computer and I discover not only does this behavior make me feel good, it relieves the pain. So we get that double whammy. And this is separate from, like Dr. Weiss, Rob Weiss, will talk about, you know, people now who just because of the prevalence and easy availability of online porn don't have that trauma-based origin of addiction, of their porn addiction. But I'm talking about the trauma-based addiction that will manifest in other ways. So those people that Rob talks about with the porn addiction, that's because they've done a lot of one particular drug, and it just, their brain gets conditioned to crave that one drug. And that's different from what I'm talking about, because I'm talking about addiction overall, and whatever our initial drug of choice is, when it's paired with that relief of pain, even if we abstain from that one drug, we're going to be seeking out anything else and everything else that provides that relief of pain. Okay? So that takes us into addiction, barrier to intimacy, and then what do? We finally say enough is enough, and you say, I want recovery. And then that's where trauma reparation, I do something called EMDR. It's eye movement desensitization reprocessing, EMDR. And if you look for an EMDR therapist in your area, it's amazing. It's amazing for dealing with trauma. It will desensitize past memories. It reprocesses old memories that led to that fear of disconnect, that fear of connection. And then we pair that with behavioral interventions. And those are, a lot of those are in the book, My Pocket Therapist, 12 Tools for Living in Recovery. And there's a lot more than 12. They're just, I like the number 12. So each category has a lot more exercises, but there's a lot of tools in there for helping the limbic system get retrained to recognize that the world is a safe place and that I am safe in it. Okay, so those early messages led to the fear of people are going to see me, reject me, abandon me. So we want to calm those fears. So we need to calm the caveman brain. Is this all coming together for you? So then we go into retraining the limbic system and then being capable of intimacy. Okay, so we're healing the trauma, recognizing the addictive thinking process, and changing behavior. And healing the, besides EMDR for healing the trauma, we can do hypnotherapy, we can do body work. Body work is amazing because we hold a lot of trauma in our bodies. Breath work, also. I had an amazing breath work experience where I actually went back to my mother's womb. It was when she was pregnant with me, and I took in, she was married to my original father, my biological father, who is also an addict, sex and alcoholic. And so I realized a lot of the messages that she had about being unlovable and why are you leaving me? Why don't you love me? I had this amazing experience where I realized, oh, I got these messages from her when she was pregnant with me. And things kind of clicked for me in my life. It was incredible. So any non-talk therapy, because talk therapy is all about the prefrontal cortex. Remember, all of this trauma and fears and everything, and the addiction is all back in the limbic system. Now we have recognized the addictive thinking process. And that's the Serenity Prayer. So y'all know this Serenity Prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. That's everything outside myself. The courage to change things I can. So that's me. That's my own thinking. It's how I respond to anything outside myself that I can't change. And the wisdom to know the difference. So that's where that addictive thinking process comes in. So what comes first, the chicken or the egg? Addiction is a circular process. We create the stress that allows us to act out, for instance. And this is where stress can be addictive. If you're using stress, like, oh, I'm so stressed, I just had to have a drink. Oh, I'm so stressed, I have to relieve the stress by coming home and masturbating to porn. I don't want to be around anybody else, see disconnection, so I'm just going to masturbate to pornography. Okay? Well, because I was so stressed. And you know what? In today's world, there's plenty of reasons to be stressed. We got COVID. We have everything that goes with COVID. Losing your job, not being able to work, not being able to go outside. I mean, right? And listening to the news and politics. And there's a million reasons to be stressed. Can we control any of them? Well, we can control isolating, wearing masks. There's some things we can control, and most of it we can't. Right? So if you're saying, I'm so stressed, I just have to do this, act out to relieve my stress, then I'm going to say to you, what are you doing to cause that stress? And it's your thinking. What thought are you thinking that's causing you stress? And that's the circular process of addiction. And again, it doesn't matter your drug of choice because you're doing all kinds of things and the stress itself is addictive. Okay, so always ask yourself, let that be a little red flag for you, that when you say, I'm so stressed, how am I causing my own stress? And you go back to your Serenity Prayer, because I'm stressed. The only thing you're stressed about is things you can't control, things you can't change, right? I defy you to come up with something that you're stressed about. Because once you've done everything you can, then there's no stress. Codependence is about changing behavior, changing thoughts and behavior. Now, when I say codependence, because codependence is becoming one of those words that's kind of controversial. When I use the word codependence, I'm talking about when what one person thinks, does, or says is dependent on how another person might think, feel, or behave. All right? So basically, codependence is I'm feeling anxious, and so I'm going to try to control you and not make you angry, because if you get angry, I'm going to be more anxious. So if I can control you and keep you from getting angry, then I'm not going to feel anxious. But guess what? We know it doesn't work, right? The anxiety in me is, that's my problem. What am I doing to cause my own anxiety? So again, Serenity Prayer. So I'm trying to control you, which is drug-seeking behavior, isn't it? I mean, we call it codependence, but it's drug-seeking. I'm reaching for something outside myself to make myself feel better. So whether I'm reaching for an aspirin, reaching for an oxy, reaching for pornography, or reaching for you to behave in a certain way to make me feel better, it's all addiction. It's all addiction. So recognizing that we can control our thoughts. I can't control you. If I speak my truth, you get angry, you don't, you act out, you don't. That's on you, not me. And then I control my behavior. So I'm no longer behaving in a way that is attempting to control you. I'm behaving in a way that is true to myself. Okay, so that's the, you know, looking at that, walking on eggshells, you know, and trying to watch what you say all the time, and, you know, that whole codependent thing. It's all addictive because I'm anxious, and now it puts me on the addiction side of the fence. So changing behavior, again, my pocket therapist has a whole bunch of tools that if you do them every day, you're doing things that allow you to live in recovery. Nature abhors a vacuum. If you take something away, we have to replace it with something. So while we are doing things that are filling up space, if I'm not using drugs or not using pornography or not doing all these addictive things that I used to do, what am I doing instead? Well, if I'm doing these exercises, I don't even have to think about the addictive things I'm not doing. I'm putting my energy and attention into recovery and basically not leaving room for anything addictive. So there's no struggle. There's no white knuckling it. I'm not going to use, I'm not going to use, I'm not going to. No, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do all these wonderful exercises. So an example, some of these exercises, we have an appreciation exercise, which has to do with thanking the universe for all the gifts we've been given. It's just a wonderful way of filling ourselves with gratitude. Think of the gifts you've been given. And then thanking the universe for the gifts you're able to give. So when I thank the universe for all the gifts I've been given that allow me to help others, that allowed me to write this book, to be a therapist, to train other therapists, to be here today with you, I am so grateful for that. That's a gift. I wrote a couple of, they're not poems necessarily, but I call one of them an intention for a good day. So it's kind of like a prayer, an intention for a good day. We have the power in our brains to manifest whatever we want. And when we do it, when we form an intention at the beginning of the day that today will be a good day, It will be. When we just say it, believe it, today we set that intention. And so that particular prayer has all the intentions. If you start your day off with that, you'll have a good day. So that's connecting with your inner self. Then connecting with others, spread the light. I started signing my emails with Be in Light. It just came to me. I liked it. How do I sign? You know, some people say warmly, some say affectionately, sincerely. I thought, what can I sign? And Be in Light. I just love that. Be in light. Right. So however you want to take that, be in light. And one day I'm walking the dog and a car came really close to hitting me. And oh, the anger just came right up. Anger's on the addiction side of things. And I just wanted to give a big, you know what I wanted to say. And then I thought, oh, you know, wait, what am I trying to live? What do I teach? So I switched to Be in Light. I just looked at the car disappearing down the road and I said, Be in Light. Immediately switched from an addictive place to a recovering place. That's simple. I didn't even have to, no mental gymnastics there. I didn't say, oh, I didn't have to argue with myself. I didn't have to do anything. Just say the words, Be in Light. Instant shift. We have that power within ourselves. You have it. So reflecting and active listening. Those are a couple of ways. Reflecting is simply when you're communicating with someone, when you're really listening to somebody. You take the time to really hear them and you say, what I hear you saying is, and you reflect it back, you repeat it back. So that way they get a sense of whether or not you're getting them and you're paying attention. Active listening is a little bit more in depth because we're reflecting back the emotion we hear from somebody. So you sound angry, you sound upset, you sound hurt about or because, and you give the meaning, you go to the meaning. So you don't just say, you sound angry because this person at work disrespected you. It's no, you sound hurt because this person was acting like you're totally worthless and not important. See, so we get to these underlying meanings. We need to create healthy boundaries with each other. So there's where we kind of get back to that codependent place with each other in our daily living. So we can be intimate and connected and yet still have healthy boundaries. I know who I am. I know who you are. And that takes a little more attention. We have a couple minutes before done, so we're right on schedule here. Recovery exercises. Down in Florida, floating out the riptide. The riptide is something that will grab you when you go swimming in Florida. If you get caught up in a riptide, it's going to pull you out to sea, and you can swim against it until you're exhausted and you drown. So we learn down here. What do? You float it out. You get on your back, you lay on your back, you float. You don't fight the tide. You don't fight cravings. You don't fight anything. You just float above it until it lets you go. So some other exercises, get a hobby, the fellowship, thought-stopping exercise. These are structuring your day. These are all things that are in the book. So you have to read the book. And then the decision. The decision is this simple. When people ask me, when people come to me, maybe I'm working with an addict who says, do you think it's a good idea if I go on this vacation with this person? Well, we could spend the whole session talking about whether that's a good idea, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to say, is it for your addiction or for your recovery? It's that simple. Because you know, we all, no matter how deep in an addiction we are, we know, yeah, this is for my addiction. Or, you know what, it's for my recovery. So it's not about talking it out with the prefrontal cortex, it's about paying attention to our limbic system and having that little voice, we know. So that's all you do. It makes everything, as you're going through your life and you're like, oh, I'm trying to be in recovery and I don't know what to do. Or, yeah, you know what to do. You just ask the questions, for my addiction or for my recovery. Another way you can ask it, is this for disconnection or is it for connection? It's that simple. So you make that decision. That's one of the most powerful tools I can give you. Finally, I wish you could see, you got to look at this handout, this presentation, because I have a picture of my old Cocker Spaniel. She died, but she's so adorable. Her name was Sammy. And be like Sammy. So the key to living a happy life is to be like Sammy. Enjoy everything, ask for help, and love and expect to be loved. Thank you. 5:40. Look at that.
You did great. So for those of you, if you have questions on any of that, please IM me and I will ask Carol. But in the meantime, you know, like, is it for your addiction or your recovery? I was thinking, you know, like most of the time I know what to do. If I'm questioning what I need to do, like I'll go, oh, I should call my friend, whatever, and run this by this person. And I always know what the answer is going to be. You know, like you're talking about, it's like, if I have to call, you know, if I have to phone a friend, it's probably not going to be a good choice. They're going to tell me why, but I have this gut sense of this is probably not the best choice, you know. But it's so funny, like how often that's happened. It's like, you know, I can do my life, but if I'm thinking about, I wonder if this is a good idea, I should phone somebody, it probably wasn't. When you were talking about float the riptide, I was thinking, what a great visual too, if I'm struggling against a compulsion, to just think of floating on the surface of it and not being, you know, caught up in the turmoil. Like I can be above it, get to a safe place, get to phone a friend or whatever, and I can shift it and get help getting away from the danger, you know. Interestingly, you know, the intention for a good day. Last weekend wasn't a great weekend for me. I ran up against the wall of COVID and being like, you know, I was feeling victimized, like I'm stuck, and like, you know, I was not living in my greatest recovery. My husband, bless his heart, was brave when I finally calmed down a little bit and said, maybe you should call your therapist. I did. And one of the things that she said is, you know, she helped me by saying, set your intention for the day. And ever since that was Tuesday, and ever since that, every day I'm doing intention, and my days are going better. So I love that, and that you have a structured intention for the day. So we've got a question.
Yay.
Yeah. So let me, if I can pull it up. Hi, just a bit of feedback. Well, I'm sorry you feel that way. So that's it's a resource. So this person's commenting that it's you, that you seem invested in selling your book. I got to tell you, authors make about 12 cents on the book. So
That's
yeah.
true.
So like, if you think she's going to be sitting on a pile of money for that, you know, I'm sorry. You
God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom of God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Sorry about that.
That was interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I hit the Serenity Prayer button. Can you address physical illness in recovery?
Well, let me go back to that other person's comment.
Please, yes.
Absolutely, I want to sell my book. You know why? Because I want to get my book to as broad an audience as possible, because it's everything I've been doing in my life in therapy and in teaching. So it's the best way to get what I teach, what I do in therapy, where I actually do charge a lot of money. I put it all into a book, because I realized as these ideas coalesced, I was saying the same thing over and over to people. And I said, you know, I just have to write this down. It's the same thing with my pocket therapist. They're all tools that I would, if you were in therapy with me, you'd be paying me a nice sum of money per session that I'm worth, believe me. But you'd be paying me for that. And I'd be saying, write this down, write this down, write this down. So what I've done is I've written it down. I put it in the book, and now you can get it for under $20 and, you know, pass it around, whatever. Because it's things at my time of life, I'm 67 years old. I'm all about helping people. I have taken 67 years of experience, both personal and professional, working with people, my own personal experience, and I've put it all into these books. And I want to get it out there because I'm not going to be around that much longer teaching and providing therapy. But I think it's valuable, and I want as many people to have it as possible. So that's why, yeah, I push the book, because there's so much there that will help you and help everyone. And I just want people to benefit from that.
Thank you. That was a better way of answering it. I sounded, I'm sure, a bit defensive, and it isn't. It really is about having resources. I was talking to a colleague, and he said something, about marketing, and I said, no, it's not marketing. It's getting the resources. Addiction kills. This was before COVID. I don't know. I think the numbers are up, but the addiction kills on average in the U.S. 274 people every single day. And I'm sure it's up now. So the, and people, people relapse. People don't get the right tools that they need. They go back to it. So the more people get into recovery and can sustain recovery, the better shot we have at really changing this devastating disease. Okay, so the next question: can you address physical illness in recovery? I have. This too shall pass, etc., but positive activity, but pain can get to be too much. Maybe it's fear of pain.
So physical illness, a lot of it is the nature of the illness. I never want to minimize anyone's physical pain. What we do in line with the Serenity Prayer, what can I control, what can I control? We need to look at what the difference is. And so a lot of physical illnesses are the result, and they're very real, but the result of trauma. We hold trauma in our bodies. And so over time, our bodies are going to become more and more holding that pain and become, stiff and tense. The back pain, stomach pain, illnesses, neck pain, headaches, jaw. There's so many things that are a result of those early childhood traumas. And when you're able to relieve them, either through EMDR, hypnotherapy, breath work, the body work, any of these things that really get to the body. There's a really good book called The Body Remembers. The author is escaping me at the moment. Babette Rothschild, The Body Remembers. That's like one of the seminal works about that. So doing any kind of body work, ascertaining what's the nature of this and how much can I affect that way. There's physical pain. There's pain management places that will look at dealing with the physical pain without using drugs. And for a lot of people, that's helpful. There's, what's your beliefs about the pain? That, there's pain that we know and are familiar with and we can work around, and there's pain that, the anticipation of pain that makes it worse. Pain can be, it's real, that it can also be modified by the way we think about it. We can look at, changes in our lives, changes in diet. There's a lot of stuff now, and I really don't know much about it. So you need to consult a nutritionist, dietitian, and look at things that we're putting into our bodies that affect mood. It can lead to depression. There's changing our diets can have a huge effect on our physical bodies, and then all our mental health, on our mood as well. So I hope that got to your question.
Well, as you mentioned that, I was thinking about Lulu Cook did and it was recorded, did a Super Saturday Recovery Summit. And she talked about there are foods that can reduce cravings. And I thought, wow, that's huge. Even if you get a little bit of bandwidth, so that it isn't quite as intense, to have that help. But yeah, what I found for me in recovery was I have a huge number of allergies. But it was shocking. And then when I started thinking about it, of course I have allergies. I have allergies to food, and of course, because I have allergies to alcohol, etc. So it made sense. But the more I reduced the things that I was allergic to, the healthier I felt, and the more bandwidth I had, across other things. Even my joints quit hurting, and it was pretty amazing. So I have a feeling, the food there too. But
Mhm.
But it's challenging when there's physical pain, and if
Of course.
people can't get to the root of it, it is really challenging to, I know some people that have done the mindfulness. Can you talk more about the breath work too? I know body work and EMDR, but I'm not as clear on what breath work is. What is that kind of therapy?
So it's generally called holistic breath work, although some people call it different things. The woman I do it with, she's a sex therapist. She took my program. She's got a doctorate now. But what she does is it's about setting up the whole scene. There's music, there's explaining what's going to happen, and then there's finally doing it. And her presence, being with me as I'm doing it. And then it's really just hyperventilating. So the hyperventilation, you're laying down and you have something covering your eyes and a blanket to keep you warm. And then you're just like, and your body starts going through these changes, and you just keep doing it, and your body starts doing these weird things, and then thoughts come up and you notice them, and you're listening to the music, and there's an awareness that she's there keeping it a safe place. And each time I've done like 3 sessions now, and I would have a different awareness of things each time. But the first time was when I just went to this place of, I suddenly realized that I was getting these thoughts of, why don't you love me? Why have you left me? And I was thinking, okay, and now I started relating that. I thought it was about me, and I was relating it to Roger, my bio father, and thinking, I've never done EMDR around him not being in my life, because he left early, and he wasn't in my life. The other alcoholic father was my stepdad who adopted me, and he's my dad, and so Roger, I was thinking, okay, this is about Roger leaving me, but you know what? I was a baby. And then I went to that place of just observing it and realizing, no, this is my mother is calling out, because he's out like drinking and with his mistress and leaving my mother alone while she was pregnant with me. It was awful. He was just, well, he's an addict, right? and then I realized, okay, that's where that came from. And so this peace in me, this awareness, this thing for me of not feeling lovable in spite of my awareness of what my actual life was like, it suddenly clicked and made sense. It's like, oh, okay, that's where that comes from. And in that awareness, it just then evaporates. You know what? I am lovable. I'm okay. It was just cut through everything. And it wasn't me that was abandoned. It was my mom. So, finding there's a lot of different ways that a lot of different practitioners of breath work. And so just finding, just see what clicks for you. Just trust the universe will take you to the right person you need at the right moment. If you're in Miami, I'll refer you to the person I went to. Her name is Carolina Pataki, Pataky. But a lot of people do different kinds of breath work, and you can certainly do qigong or other movement exercises that deal with breath, and it helps balance your qi, your energy. It's just has all kinds of benefits. Just breathing. People don't breathe properly in today's world a lot.
And I know that to be true. I found for myself, I get closed in, and then I go have some body work done, and I'm like, wow, my breath improves and changes, but by the time I go back to see my person again, I've closed myself off again. I was thinking too, when you were talking, it's fascinating, but I'm also thinking, and if something doesn't work for you in the moment, try it again at another time, because I found for myself too, that like if I had tried to do some of the things early on, like even some trauma work and things like that, I wouldn't have been ready. So it was for different chapters in my life that something else, that I was open to it or ready for it, to be able to to take that next level. So Oh, Tai Chi has helped, and Kwai Zhang, I'm probably saying that wrong. So that's
Qigong.
great. Okay, there you go. See, yeah. You can tell I don't do any of that type of thing. So great. And I think that's what it is. It's like just experiment with like, okay, I'm going to try this, you know. I mean, so I want to share this because Rolfing, ROLF.
Oh yes, I've
Oh
done
my
golfing.
gosh, that was like,
OMG,
yes,
amazing.
yes, and it's different than massage, but you know, I mean,
Yeah.
I've had emotional, like I've started sobbing, and I'm like, what is
Mhm.
going on? And she's like, you're getting, like, she's just doing body work. She's cool, but you know, she's doing body work, and she's like, you're getting in touch with some stuff that's, you know, deep emotional wounds, but they were held in my body. So
Mhm.
I'm gonna give a plug for that particular.
Yeah, and you get to the nonverbal stuff, you know,
Yeah.
going back to, you know, there's a lot happens to us both in the womb and then after we're born, but before we can speak. And so when we're trying to recover memories, it can be very difficult if those memories are pre-verbal, because how do I can't speak them because that's not how they were encoded. So these alternative ways of getting to memories and reprocessing them and healing them, we need to do different other therapies than talk, because you're not going to get to them.
Well, and I was thinking when you were talking about talk therapy, too often people just go and talk about what happened last week, you know, and so you're never getting to those deeper wounds when you do that. We've got some more questions. So,
Oh,
how does the use of spirituality or higher power affect the functioning of the brain in recovery?
so just that awareness that I'm not the greatest power in the universe. There's a power greater than me, and I'm connected to that power. I think that's a really key piece. You know, God, higher power isn't something external from me. I am part of it. So there's that, you know, the sum is greater than the total of the parts, and it's synchronicity. So if I'm disconnected, then I'm just this little thing walking around trying to figure it out. But when I can connect to the mainframe computer out there, when I can plug into that connection, feel that, then I have all wisdom, all knowledge, all guidance, everything I need is right there. So that sense of spirituality, of being connected, I can let go and let God. And but it's not giving up of oneself to something higher. It's recognizing I'm part of it. I'm truly connected. That's the key piece.
I always think for myself too, it's like my higher power uses other people. So like when I need to phone a friend for something, you know, I think that's just how I'm going to hear that message. So the next question is, how do I know when I've healed my trauma enough to be capable of attracting a healthy partner who is emotionally available?
Well, there's two things to that question. One, you know you've healed your trauma when you can bring it up and it doesn't elicit any emotional response. Right? Just things that, you know, when things are still making you cry or getting you angry from the past, okay, the trauma's still there. What like EMDR does is it detaches the emotion from the memory. So I can remember things in my childhood that used to make me cry, and then I've done EMDR and now they don't. It's just part of me, it's part of my story. As far as attracting whoever, it's just going to happen. You don't have to go out and find somebody that is your match that's going to be good for you. They're going to come, they're going to be there. So this is my belief, is that as I put out this vibration, that's what I'm going to attract. So I don't even have to worry about it. As I become healthy, I'm going to attract healthy people.
And I
so
think
when you're aware of not being healthy, then, you know, let's not worry so much about other people. Let's look at what trauma do I still need to heal? How do I need strength in my recovery program?
I think that's sage advice. So thank you so much, Dr. Carol Clark.
Let me finish.
Yes,
I pulled up
please.
the intention for a good day.
Please do. I love that
like
idea.
1 minute.
Yes.
This day will be a good day. I will be present and mindful. I will smile at everyone. I will listen to others and understand their world. I will nurture myself with good food, exercise, and fresh air. I will be nurtured with hugs and smiles. I will trust in the good intentions of those who love me. I will send light to anyone from whom I perceive harm. I will be the person I want to be. I will be connected. I will be in light. Thank you.
And you are in light. Thank you so much. Bye, everybody. See you next month.